Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming. My name is Hollow. Today we're taking a look at an upcoming game. Granblue Fantasy Relink is the upcoming JRPG from Psy Games, a continuation of the Granblue Fantasy franchise. This one was actually announced a while back now under a project title all the way back in 2016, finally launching for real in just 2 months on the 1st of February. Personally, I've seen a lot of JRPGs with this visual style, like a 3D anime with the intense VFX, a focus on characters, combos, and a variety of other characters are going to be involved in your gameplay as well as the story. I think it's easy to look at something like this and be impressed by the popping colours and what will no doubt be a fantastic score of composed music. But my question with games of this nature is always the same: is it going to be something unique and special for the genre to separate it from a long line of similar games visually and also mechanically? Granblue Fantasy spans all the way back to 2014 and started with turn-based RPG systems, also with gacha game systems. Relink is taking that original concept and turning it more into an action RPG without the gacha, thankfully. It has its own story and characters, but some big familiar names like when we consider the Primals. But what's going to set Relink apart from the other JRPGs? Let's have a look at the main details with the lead up to its launch very soon. We'll start with the story and setting. The location we actually play is a major character in itself. You're exploring these massive islands up in the sky, nestled between some deep clouds, referred to as the Sea of Clouds. The cultures around these sky islands are pretty different from one another. They have their own governments that have formed over long periods when separated. So as you go from island to island, and especially region, you should see some very different things and people. Apparently everything was created by these creatures known as the creators, and they bestowed knowledge upon the people that lived at that time. But they wanted more knowledge and ended up fighting with each other. The creators didn't like that and smashed the world, sending these shards of earth into the sky and then leaving forever. These islands hang in the air today and are separated by the Grim Basin, a sort of never-ending storm that separates everything from one another. Traveling within is very dangerous. Monsters reside there, and so people who live up in the skies are basically always at conflict with these things. A group known as the Astrals at one point tried to take control of this entire floating world, and while they were repelled, the Grim Basin seems to be a sort of result of their efforts. What remains of the world state right now is actually surprisingly tranquil. After saying that, the races that once fought for knowledge ended up banding together to fight the Astrals off and now live in a sort of peace. Clearly though, that won't be the case for long as the story begins. In terms of the races that live up in the clouds though, we have 4 main types. The humans, which are the classically mundane creatures we know them as, but play a large role in this society, maybe because there's a lot of them. The Aruns, which are essentially human-animal hybrids, but are commonly able to use magic. Harvins are the children-looking race these games always seem to have. Never been a big fan of these. Apparently they're shockingly wise and capable though, reminding me quite a lot of Lalafell in Final Fantasy XIV, not just in their design, right, but the whole surprisingly serious characters that they can be. Finally, you have the Drafts, which are these like cow or bull-like humanoids, essentially the classic strong and proud race, and are usually worker types. Where does that leave us though, the players and the main character? We start the game with a letter left behind for this unique character's dad, telling you to find a legendary island. So you put together a crew and get sailing on the skies on a flying boat, obviously. Before you can leave though, you'll meet this strange girl in blue, the mysterious Lyria, and apparently this meeting sets off quite a chain of events. As you explore the world though, beyond these initial events, you'll gather and meet many unique characters to join you on the quest, and there's said to be a massive variety in not just design but also personality and the mechanics that they work in gameplay, which is usually where these games shine the most. Trying not to spoil too much, the start of the game has a bit of a darker start. It ties into the Primals and their awakening. The primal beasts are this sort of main threat in the world. The Astrals essentially picked strong creatures that already existed and turned them into beasts of quote higher order. These primal beasts then serve the Astrals and were their main weapon. They have the ability to alter the world and are why you're going to find a lot of destroyed islands today. After the war with the Astrals, society somehow won, right? But the result was the Primals entering a sort of hibernation. They took on the form of these primal crystals, and now a lot of cultures center around them, like building a home or a town around a volcano. So the Primals are going to wake up and chaos is definitely going to follow. So the story and setup is pretty intense and dark for what is visually a bright and colourful game. It's kind of funny, the idea that your dad's just missing and then you find a letter from him that's like, come find me on this fairy tale island, and you're just okay with it. But the primals and the actual exploration of a sky sea does seem interesting. But what about the actual gameplay? While the setting is a giant sky sea of sorts, you're traveling from island to island, facing whatever's there. This means the setup for the game is kind of mission to mission, not like open world or whatever. The areas are said to be wide-reaching, but you'll load in with different objectives you need to complete on each mission, organized by difficulty. We have overall levels ourselves and mission levels, which are meant to be balanced correctly, but there isn't necessarily something stopping you from taking a mission on earlier than your current level. Relink's combat is party focused, so while you have a main character, you should also expect to meet many new characters that become your allies and can join your party. All the footage I've watched is in a party of 4 though, so you likely collect these characters and then choose what party to bring on the next mission. You pick a main character to play in battle while working with your AI allies in the party you've chosen. So where I expected lots of character swapping, not so much. You've got physical strength types, fast hitters, the dexterity types, ranged with magic or maybe physical weapons like guns and arrows. Apparently some characters have their own timing systems though, so you're not necessarily just spamming and doing combos, but attacking at the right moment to enhance your attacks and actually get to stronger options. The combos look pretty ridiculous and they're all emphasized by different abilities, some known as link attacks. So while attacking, you build up stun on enemies by dealing damage, you'll block and counter attacks, evade telegraph specials during boss fights, fight packs of enemies, or yeah, big standout big bosses. All in real time compared to turn-based. You've also got ground combos and aerial attacks, and you'll be treated lots to flashy animations, special anime-esque callouts. Overall, you'll be working your enemies with basic attacks and standard combos to build meters, and then unleashing those in various ways. You might link attack to combine an attack with an ally, or use one of your 4 customizable skills, which seem unique to the fighting style of the character, serving different purposes. So depending on what you're playing and what you've chosen, it might be like a powerful strike or combo, or it could be a healing aura or something like that. Interestingly, apparently you can choose to solo missions entirely, which seems like it would make combat way harder though. Or instead of having 3 allies with you, you could play online. The game allows for a total of 4 players in one party using that online play, which will change the combat completely, which seems like a really big detail for the game. Every game I played of this nature are completely offline, solo experiences, where you'd swap characters constantly, perform combos, unleash specials that you manage yourself. In this game, an online play, you're playing with 3 other actual players who need to time their own link attacks or specials to link with you properly, making the combat more engaging and also way more difficult because it's going to require genuine coordination. There are some complications with online play for this game though. The story is centered around you and your main character, right? So you're following that story together but also separately. That means you might be at different levels of progress. You can join other people's current missions and quests even if they're beyond your current progress, no problem though, but you will need to have actually reached said mission or quest yourself if you want to progress at the same time on that mission. But this does mean you can play with your friends quite easily. Maybe you can go back and help them where they are, or jump forward beyond where you are to help them with something they're currently doing. Interestingly, there's an after story and main content section too. New tiers of challenge that so far I haven't seen anything of, but it does seem like there's some kind of endgame systems in place to continue playing the game after you beat the main story around the side content already available. For a couple extra details to end the video though, the game is releasing on multiple platforms, that being PlayStation 5 and 4 and PC via Steam. In terms of runtime, the developers are saying that the main story is going to take between 20 to 25 hours to complete, though there's lots of exploration and side content to enjoy beyond just the main story. Personally, I really like that. A big gripe for me with recent RPGs, especially JRPGs, is their ridiculously long playtimes. There's a lot of bloat in these games, and I think it's completely fine to have a satisfying, cohesive story and experience within a reasonable time frame. There's always going to be a lot of people who like these games to kind of last forever, but at least in this case, it's going to be a reasonable playtime with lots of side stuff to do if you want to. Overall, I think this is going to be a relatively classic take on the JRPG genre, but it does have that interesting twist that you're not swapping characters and spamming, but seemingly there's going to be a bit more to the combat. Intentionally timing your specials when others are ready, rather than as soon as possible, or potentially using your basic attacks or combos in sort of a rhythm beyond spamming, depending on the character you're playing. The fact that it's fully 4-player online mode adds another level of depth to that coordinated attack focus of the combat, and hopefully if the story is gripping and interesting, maybe a bit darker than your average experience, it could be quite unique. Overall though, I think the games most stand out for that multiplayer aspect, which would add a lot more to your normal gameplay beyond playing solo. But yeah, that's my overview of the main details of Granblue Fantasy Relink. If there's any other details that you think would be useful to hear about, let us know in the comments. But for now, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.